What's up, y'all? Happy Wednesday. Welcome to episode 30 of The Attachment Confessions. It's your girl Chelsea here, and as always, I'm so grateful you're here and you decided to tune in today. And just in case you're an Attachment Confessions newbie, let me fill you in on what the pod is all about. From the moment I discovered attachment science, everything about every relationship I had ever been in finally made sense. And now I'm figuring out what it takes to earn my attachment security and have the best possible relationships from now on. Here on the Attachment Confessions, we'll be diving into all things attachment science while you guys tag along on my attachment healing adventure. My hope is that by bringing attachment science to those of you who have never heard of it before, and by sharing my own story, you'll also be inspired to set out on your own attachment healing journey. So here's the thing, you guys. Most of us developed an insecure attachment style in childhood, which I know sounds like a total bummer. But the reason I'm so obsessed with all this attachment science stuff, other than the fact that it's so freakishly accurate, is regardless of if we developed an insecure attachment style, we're not totally screwed. Since our attachment style is learned, an insecure attachment style can be unlearned. The brain is cool like that, which means having healthy, secure relationships is totally doable. Speaking of having healthy, secure relationships, two things. First, my free attachment conversation guide for couples is available and begging to be in your inbox. So reach out to me on my Instagram at The Attachment Confessions or email Chelsea at theattachmentconfessions.com and I'll get the guide sent your way. Second, all Attachment Confessions listeners get 10% off my go-to attachment expert, Dr. Sarah Hensley's attachment healing programs and services. She just launched a total business rebranding, so her new website is drsarahhensley.com, the word doctor spelled out. So go check it out and use the code Chelsea10 to get 10% off. Check out the link in the show notes. Alrighty, we're forging ahead in our summer guest series, which has been so much fun. We have had incredible guests join the pod, and I'm really excited to introduce you guys to today's guest, Caasi O'Day. Here's the thing, y'all. None of us are immune to the toxic behaviors that come with the territory of having an insecure attachment. Even the people who know all the theory, who have read every attachment related book, listened to all the podcasts, sat with hundreds of clients, and can recite all things attachment in their sleep, even they can be blinded to their own insecure attachment patterns. This episode is proof of that. And honestly, that's the most hopeful part for us all. As I've stated many times on the Attachment Confessions, knowledge and healing are not the same thing. Caasi is living proof that regardless of our education, credentials, profession, or our ability to give the best advice on the planet, sometimes looking in the mirror and facing ourselves is the toughest yet most courageous thing we can do. Hello, Caasi. Thank you so much for joining the Attachment Confessions.
Hi, Chelsea. I'm happy to be here.
So, here on the Attachment Confessions, I share a lot about my story and my attachment healing journey, but I thought it would be super interesting to flip the script a bit and give our listeners an inside view of an actual therapist's self discovery journey. So, I'm really excited to have you here because being in this line of work, you're helping people all day long. And sometimes that's when we have the biggest blinders on when it comes to ourselves. So, I'm really excited for all of us to get to hear your story firsthand and have this conversation with you.
I'm happy to have it too. And again, any way that I can inform others or give them the courage to look inside and kind of get out of their own way and see what they have to work on is my mission. And I'm happy to help everybody do that.
Absolutely. Well, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about your background as a therapist? What drew you to this line of work in the first place?
So I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I've been licensed as a social worker now for over 20 years. I will get into my story probably a little bit later about what drew me to this work, but I was a problem kid that was put in therapy myself and realized that none of these therapists know what they're doing. So I'm going to be a therapist. I'm going to be better than everybody else. So that's what led me to this work. Initially, when I started this work, I worked in treatment foster care with children. So I started my career with a lot of children already experiencing attachment issues. So I saw that from the very beginning of my career. And so I worked in treatment foster care for about 8 years. And then in about 2012 is when I moved to working with more adults. At that time, I was in managed mental health care, which is very high pace and high burnout rate. And so shortly after that, I went ahead and started my own private practice. And that's what I do now. And I have a much lower caseload, which gives me the time to provide care to my clients in a different, more concierge style way. But the experiences that I had in my early career really gave me that framework to see just how attachment starts from birth and how it really does impact all of the relationships and dynamics within people's lives. And so, yeah, I was introduced to it pretty early in my career.
Let me ask you this. So, was there a specific moment when you realized attachment theory wasn't just something you were teaching clients and walking them through, but something that you were personally living out?
I think I lied to myself for such a long time. I'll get into it, as the interview goes along. But I got married back in 2011, and I thought I was in a secure relationship. And so, for many years, when I was working with my clients and we were talking about attachment, I thought I was in a secure relationship. And it wasn't until the marriage went on and it became clearer and clearer to me I'm really actually not happy. And I'm really lying to myself so that I can stay in this very, dysfunctional relationship. But my attachment led me there. Right. So, I'm not going to blame everything on him and make him out to be a monster. He definitely had a role in things, but my attachment led me to that relationship. My attachment put blinders in the way of what that relationship was. I was working with my clients, and about probably 6 years ago, I accepted I do not have secure attachment. Like,
Mm.
I am not in a healthy relationship. This is not where I want to be. But I had young kids. And so, and being a therapist, I was going to therapize him into changing. I was going to save the relationship. Right. And I really, really tried. And what I realized in that is that I couldn't heal my own attachment while I stayed in a relationship that continued to cause those patterns, right? And so it was, now looking back, I'm fighting with the critic that wants to tell me how stupid I am that I let it go on for so long. Yeah, I
Mm.
understand why I did, right? I
Yeah.
understand that there were parts of me that needed to feel safe and they needed to feel, like they could leave and leave with my kids also being in a safe situation. And there was parts of me that didn't trust that he could take care of the kids. He's capable, but I didn't know if he would be when they were young or if he would do it in the same way that I wanted them to be taken care of because I didn't want their attachment to be impacted by me choosing to take care of myself. So I think
Mm.
I knew for a while, but I sat with it and I didn't act on it for a very long time.
Yeah.
The real pivot moment is when I saw my clients making real changes in their life. And I heard myself say, my clients are doing stuff that I'm not even doing. Like, I have to find the courage, right? And that's what really kind of pushed me in the direction of leaving my ex husband and working on healing my attachment.
Yeah. And so remind me, because I know we talked about this ahead of time, but what was your insecure attachment style at that time?
So there was definitely the fearful avoidant where I didn't realize that I had that, but when I looked at my patterns of I definitely had some anxiousness, not in your typical anxiousness. Like you could go do what you want. He traveled for work. I didn't really care, right? I wasn't worried that he was out doing things, but I definitely wanted to be wanted. I wanted to be needed. I wanted to be cared for. I would really try to find the value of how could I be the person that was a value in this relationship. So it wasn't the typical symptomology that I would see in the books, right? And how I would study it. So I was like, no, no, that's not me.
Mhm.
And then it wasn't again until I started to clear my lens and go, okay, even maybe I didn't want him to love me, but when I looked at my relationships with my parents or friendships or past relationships, who I chose to bring into my life and how I had that push and pull with people of I so badly want to be cared for, but I'm not going to tell you that. I'm not going to receive that. I'm not going to ask for that. And so instead, I'm just going to push you away and then I'm going to cry that no one's there for me. Right?
The most complex attachment
Yes.
style, not to brag, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No two fearful avoidants are exactly the same. So that's interesting that you mentioned noticing in your own behavior different things than what you read in the textbooks of what a fearful avoidant is supposed to present like or the behavior patterns. But that's the thing. There's such high trait variability within the fearful avoidant attachment style. It's not cookie cutter. Whereas the dismissive avoidant and the anxious preoccupied, they're highly predictable, right? But we like to keep things spicy, I guess you could say. We're not so cut and dry. So when you trace back your attachment to your childhood, what did you discover? What were those experiences that shaped your fearful avoidant attachment?
Well, I think the first thing is my mother's own attachment style, which she, will deny maybe, but she definitely has the same attachment style. We grew up in strong household, take care of yourself. And so there was no space. There was six kids in her home and my grandparents owned a strip club. So they would bring home the dancers and they would also like house the dancers for a period of time. And my mom was kind of taking care of the family and taking care of the guests and doing all this stuff. So there was never really a lot of love and nurturing to her. She had her first child when she was 15 and was kind of pushed away by her own family because she was seeking love and wanted to be cared for. And how do we do that when we're a teenage girl? We have sex and then sometimes you get pregnant. And so she definitely, kind of got pushed away and so became that mom of like I'm going to take care of my kid. I'm going to do it my way. No one's really going to be here to help me in the way that I'd like for them to help me. And so she became very protective of her own inner system because there wasn't a lot of support there. And so when I was born when she was 19 with my dad, she was still that woman. She's strong. She was going to get us out of poverty. She's a hard worker. And I don't know about her ability to attach because I wasn't there and that I could see it. I could only feel it. And in my own therapies, what I've come to realize is that my mom gave me what she could, what she was capable of giving, what she knew to give. Was it what I needed? No, I don't think so because I am a very like hug me, love me, be with me. There's that anxiousness, right? Like I still, as a 45-year-old woman, would love to crawl in someone's lap and have them hold me like a baby and, do all of those things. And my mom, she worked a lot. She had things to do. So when I was about 3 months old, I developed colic. And she and I were just talking about it the other day. And I said, I wonder if it was one of those things where I knew the way I could keep you close was to only allow you to be the one that would hold me. So I would not let her put me down. So I was exclusively breastfed until I was about a year old. I wouldn't take a bottle. I wouldn't even drink out of a cup. And she could not go to work. She could not let me go. Well, think about a young mom with another toddler. That's exhausting, right? And so, does she love holding a little baby all the time that's crying and cranky? No. Did I feel that? I believe I did. And is that the message my mom meant to send to me? No, I do not believe that was the case. Yet that's what I'm feeling back from my parent. That it wasn't something she chose. Was she a neglectful parent? No, it's just that attunement between what a child needs and what a mother can give, and that's oftentimes where stuff comes from in attachment, is that they're misaligned. And so I believe that that's where it started. And then very, very early as a toddler, when she would try to play with me or when she would try to nurture me, I wouldn't let her play with me. Don't play with me. Like, you're playing with my dolls wrong. Don't touch my Barbies. And so of course that doesn't feel good as a parent. Your own child's pushing you away. And that just built, right? Like, we always had a really wonderful relationship that my family was huggy and kissy, and we hung out and we worked together when I was in high school at the same nursing home because she was a nurse and I was a nursing assistant. But we had a lot of conflict because of that push pull relationship. And we're talking more about it now. But even as I do some of these podcasts, there's a part of me that's like, I wonder what my mom's going to think if she listens to these, and how is she going to feel? But it's not she was a bad mom. It's I didn't get what I needed, and that's not necessarily
Right.
her fault. She gave me what she could. And I think that's the
Mhm.
hard thing. So a lot of parents will come into my room and be like, "What, was I a bad parent?" No, not necessarily. It's that we all have different needs and they don't know how to talk to each other because we're pre-verbal. So I believe mine started at birth.
It almost kind of sounds like there was this power dynamic, like this power struggle between the two of you, even though you were so young. It was almost like a survival mechanism.
There was absolutely a disconnect, and I think that's part of it. Is back in the 80s, there was a cry it out period, right? Like, we could let the babies cry it out, and so I never blame a parent for putting their child in the crib and letting them cry so that they can go regulate themselves, right? And so I definitely had that cry it out phase where I'm in this little baby trying to soothe and nurture and regulate myself. And do I cognitively remember that? No, but my body does. And so
Right.
does my body be like, get away from me. Get away from me. Like, you're not there for me. I didn't understand that. She didn't understand that. Maybe I'm making it up now. I don't think I am. But I think that there was a power struggle from the very beginning of like, I'm going to tell you what I need, and you're either going to give it to me or you're not. And if you're not, I'm going to punish you a little bit.
Right, but then
You
it's
know?
also like, even though I want it, I don't wanna admit that I want it. I don't wanna come off as weak, right? Because then the next time that I'm looking for love or that affection, maybe you won't give it to me, and then I'm gonna feel stupid or rejected or ashamed or whatever the case may be. But in the case of the cry it out method, I love that you brought that up because, I mean, parents were just doing what the quote unquote expert advice was of the time, right? They're just doing the best they can with the information that they have, usually, of course. But for the baby that's experiencing firsthand the cry it out method, it's almost like subconsciously their nervous system sees that as a betrayal because they're alone, in distress, literally crying out, looking for comfort from the one person or two people on the planet who are supposed to be there for them in these moments, and they're not. So it's like, how can I trust you to be there when I need you?
100%. Co-regulation is how we regulate. And how does a parent regulate their child in that moment when the parent's not regulated themselves? And nobody teaches
Mhm.
us how to regulate ourselves. When no one, we don't have a class in school that teaches us this. And then if you go to therapy, something's wrong with you. So again, I don't blame people when they don't know how to do it, but it's about, can we find that courage to say, I don't know how and I need help. And that doesn't mean I'm flawed or anything wrong with me. But
Mhm.
yeah, like, how do we co-regulate with one another? And that's where attachment either gets strengthened or it gets compromised because that co-regulation isn't occurring.
And that's why it's so important to work towards having a secure attachment because, I mean, it's pretty much impossible to raise kids that are secure if you yourself are not securely attached because it's all modeling and conditioning and learned patterns and behaviors. So it's a wild world out there with attachment. So let me ask you this. As someone who understands the clinical side of attachment formation, do you feel like it was harder or it was easier to look at your own childhood through that lens once you kind of started connecting the dots? Or was it still that in denial area
I think
piece?
it was still that in denial because even once you realize it, you're like, "Man, I'm so stupid," right? Like, I don't wanna be stupid. I don't want this to be right. Let me see if I can find any other excuse, any other reason. And then there is that piece of how do I let my parents know this is what happened? And I don't blame you. I don't hate you. And you don't need to hate yourself, but I can still give you this knowledge and information, which is still where we're at today. And so
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. And it comes in waves that we have to be ready to hear and see some of this stuff. And being a mom, I didn't want to see that. I don't want to hear it. And then there was a few different times where I knew if I don't change and address this, I'm going to be passing it down. And I don't want to keep passing it down. My mom didn't get the choice. She didn't have the option. I have the knowledge and I have the courage.
Yes, that reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from the great Terry Real. Family dysfunction rolls down from generation to generation like a fire in the woods, taking down everything in its path until one person in one generation has the courage to turn and face the flames. That person brings peace to their ancestors and spares the children that follow. So, I love what you just shared because that automatically made me think of that quote. It really resonates with me and it's so powerful. So that's amazing that you're doing what you can, even though it's really difficult, especially as someone who is in the line of work that you're in to look in the mirror, look inwards, and have the courage to change that dysfunction that's been in your family. So that's amazing. So, once you kind of pieced everything together from tracing things back to your childhood, did knowing the why behind your attachment make it feel more manageable? Or did it almost make it more painful to see clearly given the clinical knowledge that you had?
I would say both, which again, looking at early relationships or relationships in high school or college and knowing who I went to, right? Like there was always a dynamic that I chose in relationships. And I chose it because it helped me feel safe. It helped me feel less vulnerable. It helped me feel more in control. And then I looked at my marriage and I really had to kind of face that I thought that I was going into a secure relationship for the first time in my life and then realized pretty early into it, like, I think I got duped. But like I'm gonna stick it out. I'm gonna fix it. I'm gonna make all the excuses in the world to make this okay. And then it was really hard sitting in this office. People expect a lot of you, right? And to be able to say, hey, guess what? I think I'm in a relationship that doesn't serve me. This is embarrassing. This is really embarrassing. And by the time I realized it, I was in my mid 30s and women in their mid 30s, your biological clock is ticking. You have no time to waste and go find a new partner. Dating in Vegas is not easy. So I was like, we're just
Mhm.
going to make this work, right? We're just going to make it work. So I had my first baby. 18 months later, I gave birth to my second baby. And having young kids is really hard. So I thought to myself, oh, this is just a stage. We're going to get through this, knowing the whole time this is not a stage. But then it became very, very apparent to me that I was in a relationship where the attachment led me there. It was not healthy. It did not feel good. It was only going to breed attachment wounds for my children. And it's not what I wanted to show them and what I wanted to pass down to them. And so it was a little bit of both. It was, oh, I have the information and this is embarrassing to admit to it. And that's part of why I want to share with people of that's what keeps us stuck is that we're embarrassed, we're ashamed, we feel guilty, we don't want to have to admit. And it is hard and it is painful, but to remember like you deserve to also be happy. And sometimes we have to work through some stuff before we can get to that space where we feel safe in our body, in our environments, and in our life. And that's when we can achieve that sense of joy and happiness again, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it does. It takes someone to just be like, you know what? I'm human just like everybody else on the planet, and I need to own up to what I've contributed to the unhealthy parts of this relationship or what I've allowed to continue for far too long. I've shared about this before, but I was in a relationship for 10 years that nobody in my life knew the extent of what was really going on inside of that relationship for multiple factors. I mean, I was protective of the person because I did genuinely love and care about them, but also I didn't want people to worry about me and I didn't want to be a burden on other people. You don't want to air all your dirty laundry to everybody in your circle so that they then don't like your partner anymore that you're choosing to stay with. Also like just straight up embarrassment and shame that I felt. There's also the sunk cost fallacy of, well, we've already been together this long. Like, I don't want it to seem like it was a total waste of time and all for nothing. So I'm going to stick it out and try to make it work as best as I can. There's just so many factors that go into it, but I can only imagine you being a therapist and having clients that come to you and look to you as this pillar of practicing what you preach, right? Like this person definitely has everything in their personal life together because they're guiding me in personal life best practices, yet that wasn't the reality of your situation. I mean, I can totally see how that would add a whole other layer of I just got to keep trucking with this and try to make it work and hopefully I can change him, right? I've discovered that's a really common thing for fearful avoidance, that savior complex that we have and feeling like we can change or fix somebody, but unfortunately, we can't.
Right, and I will never ever try to change anyone again, right? That's one of the things that I decided that that is not going to be my mission, and I'm not going to push. I'm not going to chase. I'm not going to make things happen. They either will or they won't, and that's okay. And that was part of healing the attachment. Of that doesn't mean that I'm not wanted, that I'm not good enough, that I'm not worthy. That actually shows that I am by saying I don't have to push someone to love me. Like I am lovable how I am. And that person will either realize that or they won't. Right.
Right, exactly. Okay, I have a question that I'm super curious about. How did your fearful avoidant attachment actually present itself or show up in your marriage as you were actively helping clients with their own attachment issues?
So, what I'll say is, I had that pattern of going after someone that I knew would never leave me. I always chose people that would never leave me. I was always, and this sounds horrible to say it, so I don't mean to like make, anyone sound less than. I was smarter. I was more financially stable. I was better looking. I was in a better position that no one in their right mind would leave me. Right. And so that's the first way that I would set it up when I was dating people, is to choose that to protect myself and also to that push away piece. I knew I could treat you however I wanted to treat you, that I could be sassy, I could be a little crazy, I could be demanding, I could be controlling, I could do what I wanted. Because remember, I did that with my mom. I was born coming out of the womb, doing what I wanted and knowing how to manipulate my environment to get what I wanted. Right. So that was a survival strategy for me in a way that that showed up in my attachment and many, many relationships throughout my life, and still something that I struggle with letting go of now, right? We go out to eat. My friends know Cassie's going to choose her seat first because she likes to sit in a certain spot. I'm trying, right? But there's that, discomfort of being out of control in my nervous system. I don't like it. So that was the first way that I would protect myself. And when people did hurt me in relationships, because people still did hurt me, I would slap you back even harder, right? I knew how to hurt people, and I'm a therapist. We can either harm you or heal you. There's a reason that sociopaths choose to go into my career. It's because they know how to hurt people and they really get joy doing it in my office. So, hey, heads up, make sure your therapist isn't a crazy one when you're meeting them, because we know how to do that. We're very smart. We know what's going to hurt people. And so I knew how to hurt people in my relationships. And again, it was protective. It was what I did to protect myself. So when I got married, again, I walked into that relationship really, truly, I thought I loved him. I thought it was a great relationship. He was successful. He was attractive in a different way than my usual, type that I would go for. He had a 401k, he had a house, he had a car, he had a savings account. There was a lot of safety that I needed to have. But I also wasn't the smartest. I didn't have the most money. I didn't have the stability that he had, right? So I really put myself in a vulnerable position, and I felt okay with that. And so when I entered that marriage, that I always felt something that told me this is not right. And I think mostly what it was is I couldn't show up in my authenticity and be accepted in that relationship. But I kind of put that to the side and told myself I needed to feel like I was moving forward in adulthood. And this person gave me the space to do that. And throughout our relationship, things just they got complicated. I hurt him. I didn't show up for him in a way that he had wanted me to, so he would hurt me back. And then he would hold it against me and he wouldn't show up for me. And then I wouldn't show up for, and so it just went tit for tat, the back and forth, and it got more and more hurtful. And, without going and compromising his, privacy, everybody has their own attachment style. So we have to remember he had his as well. And those two coming together definitely was not a good one, and so I think again, I told myself, okay, some of this is me. Some of this is I've hurt people. I know how to hurt people. Let me try to make it up to him. Let me try to make the repairs. Let me try to be different. And so I put a lot of the blame on myself for a long time of if I did better, if I did more work, if I did the change, then he would change and he would want me. And that ultimately didn't happen, and it only truly got worse. And I think his pain got bigger, my pain got bigger, and we got nastier towards each other. And those are my protective parts. I know how to hurt you. You're going to hurt me, I'm going to hurt you even worse, right? So I stopped respecting myself in that relationship. I wasn't myself. I didn't like myself. I couldn't believe I allowed myself to be treated that way. Like no one ever treated me that way before, truly. And so, but how do I leave? I have two kids. How do I leave? It's expensive. And so it was about kind of recognizing I play a role in this. No one's when no one's innocent in this situation. Um, and that was hard to look at. That was really hard to look at. And I think I've done a good job in the last few years of really looking at where was it him, where was it me, and where was it us together, right?
Yeah.
I doubt he has. And so that's what's still difficult with co-parenting is I tend to be the bad guy. And I'm no longer trying to prove that I'm not, because I know that I'm not. I can own what I did, and I don't need to make you see that, right? And that's part of the
Right.
attachment is you don't have to like me. You don't have to respect me. You don't have to believe me. I can do that for myself now.
Right. Yeah. So, okay, was there ever a moment where you caught yourself doing something in your relationship and thought, oh crap, I literally just explained this pattern to a client and here I am doing it myself?
That is a very, very good question. The answer would be yes. The real question is which one am I going to share or explain? And I think that's the thing is
The
because
juiciest.
because the juiciest, because mine didn't look right like how you would typically see anxiousness look or avoidant look. It would be one of those things where I wouldn't tell you like, oh, I'm really sad that you won't care for me, or like I would try, but anytime I would try it, my parts would very quickly step in and be like, this isn't going to work, we're not even going to go there. Some of it was about, well, I'll just kind of sh- share, a little bit, is like the intimacy piece. I think that was the biggest thing for me. Is I really, really am a hugger. I'm a snuggler. I like to be touched, but for such a long time in my relationship, I didn't think I did. I didn't think it was important to me. And then I noticed that I was the person that would hug everybody. My clients wanted a hug, my friends wanted a hug, and I really enjoyed the hugs. And I think that's when I realized, like, I don't even like hugging my partner. I have to go and seek the affection. He doesn't want to give it to me. When he does give it to me, I can tell that it's not wanted. He doesn't want to give it to me. It's not reciprocated. And so I felt this disconnect. And I would always talk to my clients about attunement and connection and intimacy, and I didn't have any of it. I do use self-disclosure in my office with clients, and I would find myself using self-disclosure, and sometimes I would ask myself, is this for me or is this for them? And that's a question we're supposed to ask ourselves as a therapist, right? Is this going to be helpful? And what I realized is there was a part of me that was seeking that connection and intimacy that I wasn't receiving at home. And that's where it was kind of like, oh God, like this is not what I want to be doing. I don't want to be seeking connection in places that this is not even appropriate for me to be. And again, let's make it clear, never cross the line with any of my clients, right? Like, let's not be like, oh, let's report Caasi to the board. But it was about recognizing that there was this urge, there was this need, there was this calling to have connection with someone, because I didn't have it at home. And I would just tell myself, oh, he's tired. Oh, he's in pain. Oh, he's, busy. Oh, his boss is giving him a hard time. And I would make a million excuses for his lack of connection with me. And that's what I couldn't truly ignore, is when I realized, like, I am participating in anxious type behavior outside of that relationship because I'm not capable of getting it within that relationship. And then if he did try to connect with me, let's say he would want to have sex but wouldn't want to hug, wouldn't want to this, would I don't want to have sex with you. You don't have any emotional availability to me. And so I would push him away. Or he'd be like, hey,
Mhm.
let's watch a TV show together. I don't want to sit here with you and watch a TV show. Like, I don't want to hang out with you. I don't want to do anything with you. But I so badly wanted to connect, but not with you. Right. So I
Mhm.
think that was what I noticed I was doing, and then telling my clients, "Oh, you should notice this, pay attention to these patterns." And I was living it myself. What's funny is, because I do use some self-disclosure, because people will always ask you, what would you do? How do you do? How do you handle this? And so I would give little snippets of how things would go in the relationship. When I left my husband, a lot of my clients were like, thank God. Like, God, you weren't in a good relationship. And I'm like, they knew it before I did. Before I even admitted it to myself or to them, clients already knew, like, what is Caasi doing here?
You're
And
like,
so
why didn't nobody tell me? Hello.
well, that's what I said to my colleagues too. I was like, why did you guys not tell me? And they're like, how are we supposed to tell you? Right? Like, what you like probably won't hear if someone else is telling you anyway. And I was like, fair enough, right?
That's the
But
thing with us fearful avoidance. We got to figure it out for ourselves, man. It's like the
it's like the
school of
school
hard
of
knocks. Like we
right.
have to learn by making the same mistake a bajillion times, a bajillion different ways. And then maybe we'll learn the lesson, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Uh, so, what would you say is the biggest gap that you've observed between intellectually understanding attachment and actually healing it in yourself and in your clients?
I think the biggest gap is there's a couple. That number one, people don't like to be uncomfortable, first of all. And so, in order to move through that, you have to be uncomfortable. You have to be really uncomfortable. And people avoid discomfort at all costs. avoidance, naps, reading, work, like whatever they want to do to avoid the discomfort. So I think that's a huge gap is, yeah, we can talk about that, but then to feel that, we don't want to do that. And so it's creating that space where we can feel that and not have it hijack our whole system, right? When I left, I knew that once I started to cry, the tears were not going to stop. And for about a year, I would show up to work, no makeup, face, eyelids swollen. I'd be in session and all of a sudden tears would be streaming down my face. And I didn't take new clients for almost a year because I just wasn't in a space where I was going to introduce myself to new people like that. Because I am a great therapist, my clients knew what was happening and I was still capable of teaching and listening and showing up for them. But my nervous system was so dysregulated during that time that I just wasn't gonna. Hi, I'm Caasi. I'm a therapist. I'm gonna help you when I can't even get myself together, right? And so I think that's the second piece of it is the shame, the embarrassment, the like you said, my own parents didn't know what my relationship was like. When we would be talking on the phone and he would come in the room, I would mute it because I didn't want them to hear what was happening in the background. And then what they would see is crazy Cassie, and all my friends would see me act a certain way. But what they didn't realize is what I experienced behind closed doors because he was a really great salesman, right, to people. And he didn't always treat people that way, but he absolutely treated me that way. And I don't hide my feelings super well. I am expressive. You're going to hear it, you're going to see it. And so I think that's the thing is, how am I going to tell my friends, tell my family, tell my colleagues, tell the community, tell the world, like this is it. And so I think that's the thing is even when I knew it, I had to work with my system for a good year and a half in therapy before I found the courage to actually take the step to leave because there were parts of me that would not allow me to do it. And then there was parts of me that were like, get the hell out of here. And we had to have conversations together before I could safely, and when I say safely, in my nervous system, move out, right? And if we know anything about nervous system, it's we have to go through a lot of really tough stuff to get to that place in our nervous system where we feel good again. And I didn't want to do that. And it's not fun. And, I'm a single mom that had mortgage to pay. And who's going to come
Oh,
see me when I'm going through all of
I'm
that?
like, I ain't
So
got time for this.
I ain't got time for that. And that's the biggest obstacle I see in my office is clients know that. They know that, but they don't want to go through it. They don't know how they're going to go through it. And some of them don't have the support, the capability, the finances to go through it. So they're stuck, and so bridging that gap of how do we help you the best that we can in the circumstances that you're in is where I'm faced in my office. And most people, are going to face at some point in their life.
Did your professional knowledge ever become a way to avoid doing the deeper emotional work? Like, could understanding it actually become its own kind of defense mechanism for you?
I think the opposite may have happened. Once I peeled back that curtain, it just started peeling back, right? I kept seeing it and seeing it and seeing it. And during the year, I divorced him. He lived with me for 9 months after the divorce was final. And so my nervous system went into the dorsal phase where you just shut down just to survive, right? And so that's where I was kind of shut down. I was disconnected. I was disassociated. I come to work and I would just cry because I couldn't really like function at home. I couldn't grieve at home. I had my ex-husband sleeping in my bed still. And so when I was able to come out of that, that's when I was able to start to feel and to see and to experience. And then I went really into it where I was reading, I was crying, I was doing all of the treatments and all of the therapies. And there's this thing that you can kind of lose your state of reality when you're doing that much therapy and that much deep diving. And I got a little far into it, right? And so that's where a lot of my friends and my treatment team, because I do different kinds of therapies just to kind of help myself on different levels, we're like, maybe we should pump the brakes on kind of doing some of this stuff,
You're like
right?
overloading your nervous
Was
system.
overloading my system because I had the information, but I so badly wanted to understand where it was and how to heal it and how to fix it. And I went too far into it. And so I think I went on because I'm a therapist, right? I'm going to fix myself and I'm just going to fix and fix and fix. I don't have to pay for therapy. I can do it morning, noon, and night at home.
I'm gonna stare in the mirror and therapize myself.
And so I think I went in the opposite direction, and it's been about a year now since I've moved past that and I feel a lot better,
Like,
but I
okay, I took a
absolutely
little
wanted
bit
to.
of a chill pill on the
Yeah, I
way.
took a chill pill. I took the advice of my colleagues and treatment providers, and I'm like, okay. But I did. I needed to dive into it. A lot of work done there.
Yeah. Well, when there's, I mean, trauma from birth, basically, and I'm sure even in the womb, because of what your mom had experienced and, being such a young mom and multiple children really young. I mean, you probably felt unsafe even in the womb, subconsciously, right? Like without you knowing, but there was just like those chemical reactions going on in her nervous system, that your nervous system is then absorbing. I mean, it's a lifelong experience of just trauma after trauma after trauma that when you finally are like, okay, I need to do something about this. Like, I have to be the change in order to see the change. But then you sometimes just go a little bit too hard in the paint. And then your nervous system is like, dude, baby steps. This is what
This
we've
is what
been
we've
doing
been
for
doing.
like almost 4 decades. I need you to calm down, sister.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what's interesting, Chelsea, is I did a treatment modality called brain spotting, and the woman that I do brain spotting with as the client, she did an in utero session, which whether people believe this is possible or not, we were able to go back to me being in the womb to be able to experience what I experienced. And what was interesting is I felt good in the womb. I felt peaceful, I felt safe, I felt happy. I didn't feel completely connected, right? So there was a disconnect even still in the womb. I think I know why. And out of protecting my mother, I don't want to share what I believe that reason was.
Mhm.
But about 9 months, right? Because pregnancy is really like 9.5, 10 months. Around 9 months, when I knew or the body started getting ready to give birth, that's when there was this, I don't want to go out. I don't want to go out. I don't want to leave
Mm.
this space. This is my space. My mom can't leave me when I'm in her, right? And then I was also born with the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck twice. So I was born being choked, right? So that the moment I came into this world, I was almost killed, right? And so from the moment I was born, there was also this idea that this is not a safe place. But I do believe that there was some disconnect, some difficulty attaching in the womb. And I also didn't want to leave there.
So let me ask you this. What fearful avoidant patterns were the hardest for you to own when you finally saw them clearly in yourself?
Well, receiving is a very new thing for me. And so recognizing that I'm terrified to ask for help, I'm terrified to receive. It feels so gross in my system to do that. It doesn't feel safe, it doesn't feel normal. And if I'm going to attach securely to someone, these are some things that I need to learn how to do. And so when I started dating, I first of all always recommend that once you get out of a serious relationship, you take a good year to do some healing on yourself, right? Before you get into another relationship so that you can really get to know yourself. And that's where I think the healing of my attachment style really was able to happen. When I did meet someone, I went into a CPTSD flare up because my nervous system was like, oh, no, like, we're not going to trust someone. We're not going to do this. Like, I don't
Yep.
trust you to make good decisions, which was me, right? Like,
Mhm.
not going to happen. And so I had to, first of all, work through that to get to that place of like, hey, remember we took that year off? We know how to take care of ourselves. We're not going to get in the situation again. Like, hey, nervous system, I got you. But what I noticed in my new relationship is the ability to receive, to not control, to relinquish, to allow him to not always have that protective tough girl front, and to truly soften. And there was this one day we were sitting in my kitchen, and I started getting really emotional and uncomfortable, and he was staring at me. And don't look at me, right? Like, now you can see me. Now I'm vulnerable. Like, I can look at you all day long in the therapy room. Don't look at me, because I don't want that discomfort. And so he was holding the space for me to have those feelings, and to have that tough conversation, to be vulnerable. He wanted to hear it. And he was still eating and I was done. And I was like, I'm going to go take a shower. Right. So I left and went into the bathroom and turned on the shower. And when I was getting ready to enter the shower, I just started crying. And I said to myself, like, this person is really wanting to be there. Like, someone actually wants to listen to what I have to say. And they are doing it in a way that feels good and feels safe. And I know they want to do it. And yet I walked away from them, and I'm not going to do it. And so I turned off the shower and I went back out there, and I just cried. And he just held me for about 15 minutes while I cried. And what's great is there's so much attunement that I don't even really need to explain what's happening, because he's very attuned to me. He reads, he learns, he understands his attachment. We talk about this stuff all the time. And then once my nervous system was able to be like, okay, we can form words, I was then able to share with him what happened. And so now he'll notice those things when I'm doing them. And he doesn't push, but he gives me that space to kind of work through my own pattern. And if I come back, that's great. He holds space for me in whatever way I need to have space held. If I don't come back, he doesn't criticize, he doesn't beat me up, he doesn't throw it in my face, right? And he knows eventually I'm going to come back and be like, yeah, so I did that thing where I walked away and I wasn't comfortable being vulnerable. And he's like, yeah, what's it like to say that now? And I'm like, stupid, right? Like, it's stupid to say that, because that's still my vulnerability, that I'm like, oh, I don't want to be vulnerable. I like, oh, I don't want someone to be there for me. But it is really hard to notice, like, that own dynamic. But it because I'm in a safer situation in my nervous system and relationships and in my life, I can see it. And now I have the place to practice that, where before
Mhm.
that would have been thrown in my face, right? Oh, I tried to hold you and you just walked away, so why would I try to hold you again? And it's like, well, because I'm a human being, I'm not perfect, and I need that space where I can show up imperfectly in a safe way. And so that
Right.
that was really eye-opening for me. And just as small as my boyfriend tells me now, you will not take out the trash. Like, you're not allowed to take out the trash in your own house. And I'm like, but the trash needs taken out. And he's like, and ask me. And I'm like, oh God, like, ask you
Mhm.
to take out the trash, like, and I'm gonna get yelled at, I'm gonna get criticized, right? I'm gonna, like, oof, like, my whole body tenses. And it's
Mhm.
noticing a little bit at a time. Like, a lot of that stuff is undoing the wiring that goes all the way to childhood in different ways. Of, you take care of yourself, something needs done, you do it, right? If you're going to get ahead in life, you're going to be the one that's going to get you ahead. If you
Right.
ask for help, it may or may not be there, so take care of yourself. And so to actually
Mhm.
lean on someone, it scares the crap out of me,
Yeah.
but I'm learning how to do it. And when that person that I'm dating has to tell me no, I notice that, well, I'm not going to ask you again, right? Like, I'm not going to, and
Mhm.
no, Cassie, that is again your attachment style, not wanting to be told no, not wanting to be hurt. That doesn't mean that they don't care about you. It doesn't mean that they don't
Right.
want, right? That, and that's again where my attachment style, I don't think, is ever going to be healed. It's about healing throughout a lifetime.
Yeah, because nobody is ever gonna be 100% secure.
No.
I mean, if you were one of the lucky ones like us that did not form a secure attachment, it's a forever work in progress. But it's about, like, what you were talking about, how you quickly acknowledge, like, oh, wait, hold on. Like, wait, that's the old Cassie. That's, or that's my FA rearing its ugly head, but, like, what's actually going on? What's the truth in this situation? What's the story I'm telling myself or that my nervous system is subconsciously just telling me automatically because that is how I have been programmed to act and behave and think and feel. Your year of, not relationshiping, but trying to do the work and focus on healing, that is amazing, but that's just the starting point. Then once you actually get in the relationship, that's where the rubber meets the road of all of that work that you've put in over yourself over the last year to be able to really test it out to see like how far have I come. But for somebody that has severe fearful avoidant attachment, those baby steps are really big leaps, right? One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind kind of a thing because you are having to retrain your subconscious of, how you've been your entire life. And having a safe partner to be able to hold that space for you for whenever like crazy Caasi, quote unquote, does like to show up, we're a work in progress, that just does so much positive reinforcement of your healing work when you do have that safety of that person that's not going to throw it back in your face, that's not going to ridicule you, belittle you, make you feel like you're the worst person in the world for having an emotion. You know what I mean? So it's forcing you to confront your fearful avoidant attachment patterns head on. You're able to recognize it faster and faster and faster each time and not let all of your normal patterns brew for a long period of time to where it gets out of hand.
Right. And one of the things I would say too, Chelsea, is it's one thing to learn something in the therapy office, right? That's intellectualizing, that's learning, rationalizing it. The integration is doing the work outside the office. And the way that I frame that is integration is allowing the body to catch up to what the mind knows. So the mind might know something. The body still doesn't know it, right? So the integration is doing it again and doing it again and noticing it and working with it and fine tuning it. And that's where, again, should people be in therapy forever? I think people should be open to learning, to growing, to understanding, to being curious about themselves. Does that mean sitting in an office with a therapist forever? No. But I think like we should be integrating things that we learn in our life. And that's, I can know something, my body doesn't know that. And the only way my body's going to learn it is by going through it, feeling it, like you said, correcting it. And that takes a lot of practice. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't want to do is they don't want to practice because it's uncomfortable. And not everybody's in a safe, a stable situation where they can practice it. And that is where it makes it even more difficult. And like you said, that relationship of the way that you're going to heal your attachment is within a relationship, right? We're hurt within relationships, we heal within relationships. And so if we don't have relationships or safe relationships, we're not going to be able to heal our attachment. It's one thing to do it by yourself, it's another thing to integrate. And the
Yeah.
tendency we get in that pattern with the same type of person, right? That's going to reinforce and keep us safe, quote unquote, but we're just continuing to hurt ourselves because like I said, when I met my boyfriend, my whole system was like, "Oh my god." It was something I had never felt and experienced before and scared the crap out of me. And I had to step back and go, okay, let me look at the facts. Let me take it slow. And what I kept coming back to is go slow. I didn't know if I could trust this person. I didn't know if I could trust myself. But what I kept hearing is, you don't have to rush this. Take your
Right.
time. Trust but verify. Test a little bit, but not manipulate, right? See where you can be vulnerable and how do they hold that for you. And I've
Right.
learned so much about myself and the stuff that I used to do in my previous marriage, right? And go, okay, I want to change that to show up differently for the partner because I don't want to do that for that person. And I can be a little bit impatient. So there's times where I just want to be like, hurry up, like hurry up, right? What does it take you so long to cut a watermelon? And instead, I just tell myself, like, he's cutting a watermelon. Just sit there and talk to him, right? Like, no one cut a watermelon for you before. Who cares if it takes 20 minutes? It's cut really well, you know? but but I noticed, like, that actually probably didn't serve me well in my previous relationship to act like that. And that's where I have to own I brought things into that as well because I thought I could treat people that way to control my environment, to keep me safe, that would, and it's constantly learning about yourself is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that you had mentioned the brain spotting in terms of a way to heal your attachment. What are some other modalities or methods that you've used to actively try and make a difference in your attachment healing?
So the modality that I think, I mean, there's a few different ones on how you want to do it. So if we think about things from a nervous system standpoint, polyvagal theory is not it's not a style of therapy, but there's a theory that the nervous system functions in different states, right? And we want to get to that state where it's fluid and flexible and we can move in and out of different nervous systems. And lots of people are walking around in fight or flight states is the easy way to explain it, or shut down dissociative states, right? So we want to be able to get to that place where we're flexible. So I teach people a lot about polyvagal theory and how to help their nervous system through somatic practices. So then I use a lot of somatics in my therapy to teach people how do we use breath work, movement, resonance, how do we use self-touch or touch with others to get to that space where our body is starting to actually change the wiring that it's been created with. And the theory that I use the most is internal family systems. And internal family systems is the idea that we have parts. And there are parts of us that are what we call exiles. And those are usually very young, sweet, tender, innocent parts of us that we then protect with managers, which an example of a manager is I always chose someone that I was quote unquote better than. That's how I protected that sweet, vulnerable little part, right? And so we have managers that are preemptively trying to protect us by never again letting things happen. And then when things slip through the cracks, we have firefighters that come in and take care of things. So that's where the mind manipulation would come in, as if I did get manipulated, I knew how to shut that down. I knew how to control them. I knew how to hurt them more than they hurt me. And so internal family systems is really wonderful because when I was learning about my attachment style, what I started doing, as I call them parts armies, is I would just draw little stick figures in my journal and just notice there's a part that wants to stay, there's a part that wants to go, there's a part that wants to be held, there's a part that doesn't want to be touched, there's a part that wants to cry, there's a part that wants to punch. And it's like, God, this is confusing. But it's recognizing that that is what our system is. It's a very complex dynamic system that we get overwhelmed with, and then we feel crazy talking about, and then we just kind of disregard it. And internal family systems helps you recognize, like, we have parts, again, really vulnerable sweet parts, and then we protect it. And that's what happened in my marriage is our protectors started fighting with each other to protect our own vulnerable parts because everybody has them, and they can get really good at fighting with each other. And so I love using internal family systems, and it's a good way to also treat trauma and to help people kind of look at past relationships, past experiences, and even looking at my own family. My mom has a part that didn't know how to show up for me. And she has a part that absolutely loved me, right? There's a part of me as a mom that absolutely loves my kids. And there's a part of me that is happy when they go to live with their dad for the week because mommy gets a chance to breathe, right? And so that's where it's kind of like, oh, but some people will come into my office and say, do you think I have multiple personalities then? I'm not talking about dissociative identity disorder, but yeah, you have parts that sometimes want to order a French fry or get a side salad at the restaurant. So yes, is
Yeah,
that
two things can be true at the same time, right?
right? I love those
Yeah.
two modalities, or that the modalities IFS and then the the polyvagal theory is really looking at nervous system, and then attachment is again, there's not attachment therapy that I do, but it all does run into our parts and into our nervous system and how our system then attaches to either protect, right? That push pull dynamic.
Okay, awesome. And you kind of touched on this earlier because you were like, I'm a therapist. I can therapize myself. I can figure this out myself. So, you ever find yourself being your own worst patient?
Well, one of the things that I love about being a therapist is I know lots of other really great therapists, right? And during that process, for instance, I have a psychiatrist that I've worked with that is a colleague for years. And so I would reach out to her and be like, "Am I crazy? Am I grandiose?" When I started to like love myself, I was like, I think I might be bipolar. Am I grandiose? And she goes, "Are you grandiose or are you just starting to like yourself?" And I was like, "I don't know. You tell me." Right. And then my other couple of best friends, they're therapists. So they were good people to kind of check my own reality in, of like, hey, I'm doing this work, but I was always in therapy myself. And that's where I say, a couple warning signs. If your therapist isn't in therapy, maybe you shouldn't be seeing that therapist. If that therapist seems controlling or is the best ever, maybe you shouldn't be seeing that therapist, right? And so I always had a team and still do of professionals that I work with because I do breath work. I have a somatic coach. I have, a brain spotting therapist. And so I think that as long as I continue to consult with my colleagues about whether or not I am crazy, then I feel good. I feel good about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's good to be able to have those people in your life that have the same type of training and experience and knowledge and expertise that you do. And the fact that you have the self awareness to be like, hey, check me
Me.
if I am going bananas over here. Okay. I want to be the first to know that I am not doing what I should be doing or living out how I should be living out things. Right. So,
Yeah,
it's a good accountability system that you have going for you there for sure.
it really
Not
is.
all of us not all of us know a ton of therapists
No.
and psychiatrists and this, that, and the other to be like, "Hey, am I nuts?" So that's a
Well, and I
really
also think one
good
of the
advantage
things
you got
too,
there.
Chelsea, is if you're ever in therapy or you're ever in like friendships where you're always right and they're always validating you and everybody else is the bad guy, that's a warning sign, right? Like I love it when I leave the office or my clients leave the office and they're like, "Screw you, Cassie," or I'm hanging up the phone with my friend. I'm like, "Shut up," right? Because that's what I need to hear. And I love that I have people in my life that will tell me that and that I can hear that from, right? And again, it's done within a safe relationship, where if it was done in a relationship where I didn't feel securely attached in, if I wouldn't hear it. And so I think that's the thing is we don't all have to have a team of therapists or professionals, but it's also about being able to hear hard things from the people that we care about and being able to say hard things to the people that we care about. And
Absolutely.
that comes at a risk of loss. And lots of times our attachment will prevent us from doing that because if I make this person mad or if I hurt their feelings, they'll leave me. And that's where some of my anxious attachment still comes from is I will let people mistreat me at times because if I say or do things to stick up for myself, it's going to piss them off. And then they're not going to want to be close to me. And then they're going to leave me. And I don't want to be left. Right. But part of loving myself was doing more and more of that. Of I deserve to be treated a certain way, even if that means that those people aren't in my life anymore. It's okay. That's not because I'm bad. It's because I'm choosing myself and I'm standing up for myself. Right.
Right. What's one thing that you know now about healing fearful avoidant attachment that you wish you could go back and tell yourself earlier?
Well, one thing I know now about healing it that I wish I would have known earlier is you have to be honest with yourself, right? Like you can't lie to yourself, you can't cheat yourself out of it, you can't manipulate the system, you can't gaslight yourself into believing some things. Like you truly have to be willing to look in the mirror. And I knew for a long time, I tell my clients this and share it with others, that there was a time where I would look in the mirror, and if I really focused on my eyes, I had this impulse of just like smashing my head against the mirror. And I realized that was the part of me that couldn't face myself, that couldn't accept that I knew these things and I wasn't doing anything about it. I hated her. I absolutely hated her. She disgusted me. I was embarrassed of her. I was ashamed of her. And now, what I realize that I wish I would have learned earlier is I had to love her. I had to have compassion for her. I had to hold her because she may have never really been held that way. And I hear it all the time in my office where people will be like, Caasi, I can't give myself I can't be gentle with myself and expect myself to achieve this. I have to give myself a hard time. No, you don't. No, you don't. Like, we have to come to that place of being kind to ourselves and saying, you didn't know. Like, you really didn't know, or you were scared, or you really, really wanted it to work and it wasn't going to, and you were afraid to face that. And so I wish I would have gotten to that place sooner, because I think I would have done the work sooner. But I was very critical of myself for a long time. And in order to be able to heal, I had to have a lot of compassion. So I would say having that compassion for that part. Um, and now guess what? I don't wanna bang my head into the mirror anymore, and then when I see her, I'm like, "We're doing it, right? Like, we're doing it. We didn't know." Like, we don't have to hate ourselves. We can have compassion for ourselves. There was this book, it's called The Mountain Is You, and it is about looking at yourself and saying, like, sometimes we have to admit that we are the mountain, that if we want to make the change, if we want to feel different, we have to do tough stuff. And we don't always feel like we have the courage, the compassion, the support, the connectedness that we need to do that. I wouldn't have been able to get through that divorce and heal my attachment without admitting to myself, I need help. I cannot do this alone. I have to ask for help. And I had to work with the parts of me that said asking for help is not okay. It's not safe. It's not good. It's a weakness. And so, again, we have to ask, how are we standing in our own way, and how can we get out of that way so that we can help ourselves? And I think therapy is a wonderful option, but finding a good therapist is sometimes really hard. So if there's ever anything I can do to help people, I'm always happy to help, even if it's not in my community.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the perfect place to land the plane. You did a great job wrapping everything up right there. So, thank you so much, Cassie. So, you shared with us that you're in Las Vegas. Are you licensed to practice in other states or only in Nevada?
So I'm licensed to practice in Nevada, Utah, and Colorado, and so I can practice there. There's a period that we can have with different states where we can see people for a couple of months or few months, as long as it's not long term. So if someone's interested and they want to work with me, I'd say reach out to me and we can discuss what options there are available to you. And then again, there's lots of really wonderful providers. If you go on the Internal Family Systems Institute website, there are a list of providers in your state that are trained in internal family systems, which is really great for treating attachment. So that's also a place that I would recommend to look. And then I also have my social media pages, and on Facebook, it's polarized parts. Instagram, it's polarized underscore parts. And there's little tidbits, little, videos about attachment, about nervous system regulation, about internal family systems, where it's not therapy, but it's something to maybe start to give you some courage, some connectedness, some clarity of like, oh man, like I need some help, and I don't always know where to start. So yeah, I would say if people want to email me or go on my website, which is www.polarizedparts.com, and they say, I live in Louisiana. I'm not licensed in Louisiana, but if I can help you find someone in Louisiana, I'm happy to do that. And some people would maybe doubt that. Try me, right? Try me.
Well, thank you so much, Cassie. And I appreciate you offering that sort of help. So we will link all the Cassie things, your website, Instagram, all of that in the show notes so that you guys can grab any of that information there. But thank you again so much for your time. I loved getting this perspective inside the mind of a therapist that is working through her own attachment healing journey. So thank you so much for being brave and vulnerable, which is hard to do as an FA when you're in your avoidance space, but also as a therapist yourself. So I really appreciate it. And I think that our listeners are going to get a lot out of this today. So thank you, Cassie. Man, Cassie's story just hits different, doesn't it? As a healing fearful avoidant myself, I can definitely relate to so many pieces of her story. A couple aspects in particular would be the fear of bringing up our needs because of being so afraid that our partner will shut us down. That's literally how the attachment style got its name. We avoid things out of fear that our needs ultimately aren't going to be met, which ultimately means betrayal in our eyes, aka our primary attachment wound becoming our reality. The other aspect of her story that hit awfully close to home is the trust factor, or actually the lack thereof, for everyone, including ourselves. But sheesh, huge props to Cassie for opening up to all of us and being raw and vulnerable. It takes major guts for someone in her position to come on a podcast and admit she doesn't have it all together. I personally can think of a number of people in my life who could get so much out of hearing Cassie's story. So I know that you guys probably have a running list of people you're thinking about too. Definitely share this episode with anyone you feel needs to hear it. It always helps to know we're not alone, we're not totally out of our minds, and there's hope for all of us. Okay, quick pivot. On the last episode, our awesome guest, Justin Smith, promised some fun cray swag to 3 lucky listeners. Check out the show notes to see if your Instagram handle is a winner and will get your prize sent your way. Also, if you love this podcast, please take a minute to leave a 5-star rating and a review. And while you're at it, hit me up on my Instagram at The Attachment Confessions. I love, love, love connecting directly with you guys. I could literally nerd out 24/7 on attachment. So, yeah, don't be afraid to reach out to me. I'll see y'all back here on the Attachment Confessions in a couple weeks for our next summer series guest. Summer's almost over, which is super sad, but we've got another amazing guest lined up, so you won't want to miss it. In the meantime, remember, healing your attachment is a choice. So just freaking choose it. Love you guys. Bye.